Hello everyone, and welcome back to the fourth part of the Dawn of War retrospective, the halfway point and the final expansion of the original game. Fair fucking warning, for some goddamn reason my copy of Soulstorm decided for the first time in a fucking decade and a half that it would just not work on my computer. I've never had a fail on any computer ever, but this time it just decided to, despite the first three games and the following one working fine. So I had to play it on a piece of shit laptop that barely manages to play the game, let alone along with recording software going on, so if the footage ever looks like total crap, that's why. Dawn of War Soulstorm is something of a black sheep among this series, and I was honestly excited to get back to it. So far, the only other game I didn't love to death from the start that I played for this retrospective managed to become one that I loved as well after replaying it. Maybe Soulstorm could manage that. Well, opening the game, I was hit with the reminder that the developer of the first three, Relic, was not the developer of this game, or at least not the main developer, as that was Iron Law Entertainment. The best way I can sum up this omen is that this was the last game that they ever worked on before they became a company named after wooden boxes! Anyway, let's get to it, because this is a long one. This game introduces really two major things, the Sisters of Battle and the Dark Eldar. Two armies, and nothing particularly has changed in gameplay outside of a few things that we'll discuss. But let's start with the story of its campaign mode, which attempts to be like Dark Crusade, but instead of this beautiful world map of Cronus with all of the lovely commander characters representing the players, instead it's this line-covered nonsense map of squiggles and colors that I struggle to understand if I'm not paying really strong attention, and also the campaign takes place over the Karava system instead of just one planet. Story, go! It began with the sudden appearance of a warp storm in the Karava system, catching the attention of the Imperium of Man and all their foes. Hundreds of years under the watch of the Imperial Guard had not purged the system of those native to it. The Orc War of Karava 2, and the yet unknown soon-to-rise Tomb World of the Necrons on Karava 3. Then appearing fuck out of nowhere, the Chaos Space Marines just showed up, because they do that. Suddenly arriving on Karava 4. In response to this, the Blood Raven Space Marines showed up on Karava 2 to face the Orcs. Wait, what? Then, the Tau Empire appeared without anyone noticing and built upon the moon of Karava 2 a massive fuck-off space laser. Wait, hold on. Awakened by the forces of the Warp Storm, the Necrons began to amass their legions, propagating a quick response from the unused webway gates as the forces of Eldar arrived. Meanwhile, the stealthy Dark Eldar appeared on Karava 4's moon, hell-bent on picking on the weak armies once they were weary from battle, by challenging them to fair one-on-one skirmishes with good sportsmanship. Wait, what? And last but not least, the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, the Holy Maidens arrived to cleanse the system of its corruption. A few questions here. First off, why is this just the story of Dawn of War? Straight up, it's the exact same story as the original game. You got an Imperial settlement, the Orcs are rampant, so the Space Marines show up to stop them. Then Chaos turned out to be there along with Eldar, and they also happens to be a big oncoming warp storm, and the Chaos leader intends to reach demonhood, while the Eldar are just there to stop a rising force that is being awoken by that warp storm from don't want it to be freed. The only thing they've added here is that the Tau are also there, the Dark Eldar are also there, Spal are also there, Secondly, what the fuck is going on here? We've got the Chaos Space Marines having arrived and wiped out an entire planet, but the Blood Ravens have been sent to Karava 2 to fight the Orcs? Why? The Orcs are certainly the least of their problems here. What's their plan? They'll kill off the massive War that for years has remained strong, and then they'll have enough time to purge a Chaos planet that's now become even more fortified than it would have been when you first arrived. How the hell did the Tau manage to just arrive on the moon and build up this massive cannon that can fire on any planet in the system without anybody noticing? The Guardsmen only have the Sisters of Battle on their planet, and they arrived last, so the Guardsmen were doing nothing but sitting on this planet on their own, and they didn't think to fucking destroy the moon base before it could be fortified? Like, the Guardsmen aren't on Karava 2 with the Orcs they're supposed to be fighting. They had full view of the system and decided to do nothing. Not to mention, why are Chaos on the moon fighting the Tau? And precisely what are the Dark Eldar doing? They've appeared out of nowhere, right next to the fucking Chaos Space Marines, which is probably not the best army to place your base right next to when you're the Dark Eldar. And the fuck are they even doing in a game like this anyway? And then exactly why are the Sisters of Battle here? What exactly is the purpose of sending them to purge a system that's already about to be wiped out by a warp storm? It's not like any of the cutscenes actually establish motivations here, but they do establish other stupid things. The Imperial Guard have 100 fucking Baneblades they've shipped out. Now, I'm sure with that context, that seems reasonable to you who might not know about Warhammer, but the amount of Baneblades that exist in the galaxy number in only the tens of thousands. That's a lot of Baneblades to be in one location at some random backwater planet. Like, why? It's also about to be wiped out by a warp storm. Why the fuck would there be that many Baneblades? I can't think of any time in the series where 100 Baneblades have been in one location. Most of the best commanders are lucky to have one Baneblade in their command in their entire life. Then there's the fact that the only reason we're given for this leader, General Stubbs, fighting the Marines and Sisters, is that he wants to make this a shining beacon of the Emperor's lights, by killing a bunch of the Emperor's Chosen and the Inquisition's warriors. There's also a commissar who sounds like some random Joe for some reason. Then in the end, Stubbs runs away with his tail between his legs like a coward, and that's it. Like seriously, the ending of the Stronghold is him going, "Oh shit, I've lost. Bye." And like, I know, I'm going to be comparing a lot of things to Dark Crusade here, but it makes sense. That's our only other point of reference to how this sort of game should be done. But that had more going on. I will say that Stubbs is at least probably the coolest non-Gorguts leader in this game, but that's a very low bar, and even then, nothing he does has the amount of impact to, say, his predecessor Lucas Alexander's major speech prior to the Dark Crusade Stronghold. Like, Alexander's voice isn't nearly as manly as Stubbs, but fuck, that speech he gives has some impact. Gorguts has a weird, slightly off voice, and that's all I notice about him. Yeah, he somehow also doesn't know his own stronghold, though. This guy is a fucking genius for an orc, but he knows nothing about his own stronghold. Then when it goes down, he's just like, I'll go. The Necron stronghold literally does nothing but tell you, "Hey, I'm awakening some Necrons," which is just pathetic. The Dark Crusade stronghold has a really cool speech of Thomas Maccabee while establishing the catacombs' might and the tunnels that can be navigated. And instead of an awesome ending where you see all your troops running away before Thomas sees the bomb and reacts with shock for the only time in the game as the catacombs explode, you get to see, in this ending, 2 monoliths blow up and then the entire army gets Phantom Menace for some reason. Chaos's fucking cutscenes are just weird. For some baffling reason, a cultist spends half of their stronghold intro rambling about shrines, and then their leader Karen goes on about demons and shit, and then they lose and Karen runs away. The Bloodraven Stronghold intro cannot be criticized. It is a shiny beacon of brilliance and flawless voice acting, with Borealis perhaps having the most legendary performance in the history of video games, nay, the history of acting period.
Space Marines!
Then their ending cutscene is also perfect. The lack of music leads to this gem. That was not edited by me. Borealis remembers, "Oh yeah, I followed the Emperor," and then dies. But also, hold on, they brought 5 companies! What? For those of you who do not know, one Space Marine chapter, which the Blood Ravens are just a chapter, has 10 companies in total. Bringing 5 companies on one campaign is ridiculous. It's half the entire chapter. Comparatively, the Cronus campaign, which was a campaign for ancient relics of the Blood Ravens' past, mind you, the Blood Ravens' whole thing is they obsess over their past, only had 3 companies. This campaign they have basically no stake in, they're sending in 5? The Tau welcome an Ethereal and mention how their base isn't fully ready, but also somehow their fucking cannon shoots a giant death beam that only harms advanced life forms, but not plant life or structures. Fucking what? How does... what? First off, what about like Orcs and Necrons? Necrons aren't alive, how does the cannon affect them? And Orcs are like mushroom people things. What exactly qualifies as advanced life? Chaos demons aren't really life at all, how does that work? In fact, the Tau don't even understand chaos and the warp. It's not a thing to them. How are they going to build a ray that... why have you got an eco-friendly death ray? The Tau Stronghold defeat cutscene continues to raise questions. Why is the Ethereal on the front lines? Like, this is a civilian... this is like... and the Tau commander's chilling in the base? Like, okay, here's the thing. This would be the equivalent of if you had the Pope and a military leader, and the Pope was out on the front line doing the fighting while the fucking military leaders in the Vatican just doing whatever. Probably watching to like Tifa porn or something. And then immediately, Shazol Babata screams like, "Oh, the Ethereal's dead! Just wanted all of you Tau to know, instantly destroying all of our morale." Like, yeah, the outburst is an accurate reaction, maybe even more so than Kai's reaction from the previous game. But the way the outburst sounds is almost childish, like it's weird, and that is the whole cutscene. The Eldar establish that they fought the Necrons in the past and nothing else. When they lose, they bring up that they fought the Necrons in the past and go, "We lost." It's not just the bad story that's a problem too, it's how little there is. There's no opening cutscene for each army, there's no banter in the strongholds, there's nothing with the commanders, it's literally just the stronghold cutscenes and endings. If I was to rewrite the setup of this game, I'd make it go something like this.
It was the sudden appearance of the warp storm at the Carva system's outer edge that first alarmed the Imperium, and caught the attention of many more. Soon, nearly every force in the galaxy would coalesce among the planets of Karava. Within the system, 3 races had long dwelled. The system's supposed rulers, the Imperial Guard, the Orc tribes they shared their world with, a plague they had never successfully put down, and the Necron, who slept undisturbed for millennia upon the tomb world of Karva III. Where the Chaos Space Marines came from, or how, none could say. Did the Warp Storm bring them, or did they bring the Warp Storm? In an eye blink, both appeared upon Karva IV and annihilated the settlements that had dwelt within, seeking the tainted artifacts upon the world for their own twisted, heretical gain. In quick response, the mighty Blood Ravens chapter of the Space Marines arrived to destroy the forces of chaos and claim whatever relics they may find pertaining to the long sought-after history of their chapter. Before any had seen, the Tau Empire had soon arrived upon the moon of Karva II, an empty world upon which only the blind orcs had previously occupied, seeking to harvest the bountiful resources the planet held that only they had detected with their scanners. In the interest of gathering what they could, researching the Warp Storm, and colonizing the system, the Tau built upon their moon a mighty orbital cannon to fend off the other world's space forces. Upon this action, the Tau had inadvertently forced the Dark Eldar out from hiding, having previously feasted upon the souls of the Imperium and Orcs who had fallen en masse. Now in the spotlight, the Dark Death Dealers had no choice but to take up arms and fight against their will. This flickering of the webway did not go unnoticed. In response to such energies and the chaos in the skies above, the Necron arose from their slumber, seeking to destroy the horrific living entities that had spawned in their absence from the universe. In their awakening, they drew the attention of the Eldar to stop their mortal enemies, the other races in the system not fit to the task. Last, but perhaps most be feared, came the Inquisition's Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, holy maidens sent to cleanse the Dark Eldar and Chaos Space Marines from the system, two races tainted with chaos too close to one another, and in doing so, perhaps even purge any Space Marine chapters that had spent too long under suspicion from the Inquisition's watchful eye in the process. Now, as war rages anew, only the victorious may write their history of this bloody campaign. Only the victorious may claim the planets of Karva.
And just like that, every army has a motivation, everything makes a whole lot more sense, and overall it just fits together nicely. You may have noticed I also moved the armies around a bit, which I guess if you haven't played the game you wouldn't notice, but basically, Karva 1 having the guardsmen directly in conflict with the Sisters always seemed weird to me. It feels more like the Sisters should have been stationed more near Chaos Taint. So I'd made Karva 1 the Imperial Guard and Orcs. They've been in conflict the longest, so this feels right. Karva 2 has also become free of all its previous occupants, but the Tau as a result. In my version, I'd have the Dark Eldar on this planet. It makes sense they're on a planet where there's less Chaos Taint, so they're not as obvious, either having a second moon on this planet or having the existing moon have two strongholds on it, and the Dark Eldar are hiding on the dark side of the moon, and only now have been forced out of hiding. The immediate reaction is to leave the moon to try and get away from a more powerful force like the Tau Stronghold, but they can't really do that right now because of the Warp Storm. The Sisters of Battle are the other army on this planet. They've been sent to cleanse chaos and also potentially the Blood Ravens who are under suspicion ever since Dark Crusade. But they know they can't fight the Blood Ravens head on, and the Chaos Alpha Legion at the same time would just be extra suicide. So in my version, the Sisters of Battle have decided to take out the weaker Dark Eldar first, but have also come into conflict with the Tau, who kind of want the planet to not be burnt to cinders, so they're not happy when the Sisters start doing that. Karva 3 is the same, Necrons and Eldar, and then Karva 4 is Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines locked in their internal conflict. It's much tighter as a story because the game itself isn't. But the problems extend beyond the story as well. While the gameplay remains fun as it does use the base of Dawn of War's system, it just gets tiring and boring way quicker than the last games. Dark Crusade did several things to avoid the game getting boring. The maps were big, but the goal was just to destroy the headquarter. So your battles can be played long or finished relatively quickly depending on how you want to do it. Also, due to the defense system, if you decide to end it quickly, you have a base with less of a defense to it, while if you decide to do it slowly, you'll have a more heavy fortified defense for when you get attacked. It's a bit of a risk-reward thing. Do you want to end it quickly but risk having a weaker defense, or do you want to end it slowly and have a stronger defense? While in Soulstorm, Annihilate has become the main goal, which requires you to destroy every single building the enemy has that can produce units, which can be tiring and tedious, It can take 30 minutes even if you play it as quickly as possible. And in my experience, some of the battles in Soulstorm that are normal, even on easy mode, can be as long as the hardest battles in Dark Crusade. Your bases also don't remain when you play defense, which takes away the whole point of defense. You're supposed to be defending, but instead of just having your stuff there, you just get nothing. You get a builder in your main thing. The reason why the defense system works really well in Dark Crusade is because you don't get your honor guard or your commander, because they're not in that location when it gets attacked. So you don't have that starting set of troops that you normally would. Instead, you get a starting base. It makes it fair. However, in Soulstorm, you don't get that. It prompts the usage of the auto-resolve feature, but also it forces you to play through several completely identical, repeat defenses that take just as long as before to complete, just to get all of your war gear. You don't want to slog through these defensive battles where you don't get your commander from the start? Too bad, dickhead, you don't get to have a fully upgraded commander by the end. The map also feels less impressive in general to look at, with like the lines and shit making it kind of confusing, so you might just end up aimlessly wandering around not quite understanding the supply line system, which is so pointless I won't even bother explaining it. Then there's take and hold missions. For some reason, the only way to get from planet to planet is to capture webway gates, even though there's already a lot of existing interplanetary travel through other means in the game story. How do you get these webway gates? Well, you play multiple back-to-back take and hold missions where you capture critical locations and sit around doing nothing while enemies attack you. This is not a terrible concept if it was used sparingly to break up the monotony, but instead, due to the abundance of them, they become monotonous themselves. I think we should have had multiple options for traveling interplanetary missions, such as you want to get to a planet, but it has too many defenses, say this is Carver 2 with the Orc Stronghold. Thus, the only way you're able to get to that planet is by sending in a small team that slips through, and you get that small team to take out a heavily defended base, and when you do that, your main base can arrive, and when it does, you turn the tables on the heavily weakened opponents. You can have a situation where you send a stealth team to build up a base, hoping to play stealthily as two different opponents on the map are fighting it out. Let's say you're traveling to Carver 3. There, the Necrons and Eldar are both on the map fighting each other, and they don't know you're there. So, you gotta build up your base without getting found out. You gotta take critical locations, strategic points, and relics from under their noses as you build up your tech tree until you win by getting a unique upgrade or research option for that specific level that costs nothing and is available just once you're able to get your final tech tree upgrade. You're building up with stealth. Maybe you can have a mission where you get one building that allows you to deep strike a set number of troops across the map. Let's say you get 10 troops and your commander in this building, as well as your honor guard. You have to navigate through a gauntlet while managing which troops you want to use at any given moment. You can just dump them all immediately and have a massive army walkthrough, or you can maybe dump one team to scout ahead, and then dump just the units you need to deal with the forces that are in front of you. Any number of options to break up the monotony, but at least the strongholds are good, right? Right? Well, they're mixed. The Orc Stronghold is good, getting a small group and setting up your base as your first move before spreading out on the unique moon map. The Dark Eldar Moon Stronghold similarly is one of the best and most fun, though it's really easy unfortunately. But the unique setup of collecting troops like a Dawn of War 1 map makes it just fine. I don't mind it being easy because it's fun and unique and interesting. It's just a shame that the Days of Destruction that you're meant to kill just sort of flies around at your base. I also surprisingly enjoyed the difficulty of the Imperial Guard and Space Marine strongholds, though I don't know if that's because I can say they're particularly well designed. The convoy thing with the Imperial Guard was especially just kind of frustrating when it keeps going on and on and on, and what the fuck even are the convoys? Look, rhinos! Rhinos! Our enemies hide in metal boxes, the cowards! The fools! We should take away their metal boxes! And then we give them back once we're done making them actually fucking animated. The Eldar Stronghold also is... No, okay, let's start talking about the bad ones. Some are just lame. The Orc Stronghold is really just like any other campaign map, but with a lot more orcs than normal, and you have to take out the HQ. I ended up beating it by complete accident by setting where I was setting my Living Saint wrong. I meant to send her one place, I sent her the wrong place, but she just ended up nearly destroying the base before I even noticed she was there anyway. It's not the cool Dark Crusade stronghold where there's a bunch of strung together banners, there's just one banner in this map. The Eldar map is okay in that I like what it went for, but it also just feels off. The Necron stronghold suffers from being really fucking boring and easy. You can just waltz your honor guard in and wipe out their 4 barely defended monoliths. And the Chaos one is just kind of inept. You lob some statues and kill the base. And wait a minute, is this a fucking Khorne knight who worships Khorne with fucking statues? Statues! So, Khorne is the fucking blood god if you don't know. He likes 3 things: murder, killing, and bloodshed, all of which come with a nice side of fighting the shit out of your opponent. If you don't fucking be a man and kick the shit out of some fools, he doesn't give a fuck how many goddamn rocks you carve with your testicles into a statue of a demon he kinda likes the aesthetic of. And is that fucking poison that kills you when you enter the base? Excuse me? That's fucking Nurgle shit. How often does poison make you bleed? Not very fucking often, and even if this was poison that does make you bleed, you're not exactly following Khorne by trickery and deceit over manning up and fighting. This whole base is built around not letting their guys get in to even fight you. So not only is Charon a guy who goes on about strangulation, a notably not bloodthirsty method of murder, not only is he hypocritical about metal boxes that his own fucking army fields, and not only does this daft cunt run off like a crying bitch coward when he loses, but he's also maybe the worst follower of Khorne I've ever fucking seen. Goddamn Indic Borealis would get more love from Khorne. Big Daddy Papa Blood God Khorne is right here watching the Soulstorm Crusade or whatever, like,
you know what, I kind of hope our lads lose. I'm rooting for the Orky boys here. Am I right, lads? Am I right, Nurgle? Hi, but Geralt's gone, and I'm still nicer than most governmental bodies.
Oh, and I didn't play the Sisters of Battle Stronghold for this playthrough because I played as them, and their stronghold is the least fun thing in this entire franchise. It requires you to often break the game's mechanics to get through. It's not fun. It's a terrible stronghold. I played it a ton in the past, and I hated it every time. If you compare these to Dark Crusade, you'll find most of the Soulstorm strongholds end up as just destroy one special building. So they've relegated what should be the main win condition of the regular campaign maps to only the stronghold ones, which often means some of these strongholds can be even easier than, like, regular maps. The only exceptions are kind of the Necrons, but these still just destroying 4 buildings, that's it. And the only real exception is the Dark Eldar one. Looking back at Dark Crusade, the win conditions are specifically tailored to the armies themselves, which I forgot to mention. So let's gas up Dark Crusade more, because it needs it. Necrons are almost impossible to put down, so instead of trying to kill the Necrons themselves, the main goal is to bring the catacombs down on top of them with a bomb in a specific area. Chaos use warp gates to constantly produce demons, so you take out a unique structure that spews demons at you. Eldar try to run away when they're losing, so you take and hold their webway gates so they can't run. Tau and Orcs are all about their leaders, the Ethereals and the War Bosses. You kill the main Ethereal and War Boss, and they scatter and dissipate. That just leaves the Imperial Guard and Space Marines as the ones where you just take their headquarters out, which makes sense as they're the most purely militaristic army. No evasion tactics, no over-reliance on a single general, so on. In this game, only really the Dark Eldar one is unique, and it's not even right because blowing up this ship, no matter its importance, should not be the win condition as much as cutting off the Dark Eldar's escape through the warp. Not to mention the secondary objectives feel like they barely matter. Most of them do nothing, unlike Dark Crusade where you get benefits from accomplishing any secondary objective. The strongholds aren't awful, but they're really not that great. If anything, because they're so much quicker to get through half the time, it's often the breeze when you do get to one, unless it's the Sisters of Battle. So in the end, you have a game that, while certainly still having a solid base, ends up dropping the ball on the elements Dark Crusade used to ensure its campaign of repeated skirmish missions would not get boring and repetitive too quickly. Soulstorm does not break up the missions with enough unique elements. The only alternate form of missions are also long and boring, and are played back to back. The lack of persistent bases is also a detriment that makes the game feel so much slower, and for some reason, it feels like a lot of the things like Honor Guard cost more planetary requisition than before, which means that sometimes you might just sit around doing nothing for a whole turn if you just want a full Honor Guard. Oh, and don't get me fucking started on fighting the Eldar, because a single, just one webway gate can be in some random corner of the map and take you 45 minutes if you're lucky to chase down that last fucking tiny building to annihilate them. Because webway gates have the cursed combination of counting as a building that produces units, being able to be placed anywhere on the map, and making themselves invisible. And this was on easy mode, and I jumped out with my Necrons within the first 10 minutes to take the Eldar out before they spread too far. And this is how long it took. Imagine if this was done in normal difficulty, with the Eldar actually attacking you while you're building up on your base. It doesn't help that every single map that the Eldar are located on is just a Dorito. Like, you've got your industrial world, your forest world, your purple festering shit heap world, and a Cheese Supreme Dorito ball lets you even look at than this piece of paper. Well, that's a flat piece of paper, isn't it? Speaking of Dorino Planet, poor Necrons! Everyone else can be a pain in the ass to beat in this game, but the Necrons, you just blow up one building still. It would actually almost balance things out if the Necron units were still overpowered, but they're not. In fact, the difference in annoyance is so big that in my latest playthrough, my tactic for beating the Eldar was just to wait for the Necrons to take over the Eldar locations, so I could attack the Necrons instead. No joke. In fact, I took less time on the Eldar Stronghold than this one battle, and this was my first battle on this Necron playthrough. I also have to mention the voice acting for a moment, and not the obvious problem in that some performances are iconic for being so bad they're hilarious, like Viverius Metal Box's Karen and Indrik Boreals of the Space Marines, but the fact that there seems to be shockingly little of it that's new. A lot of the leaders have unique voices in cutscenes, but in gameplay they just reuse the Dawn of War Dark Crusade voices, most notably in Viverius Karen.
The horrid blossom of chaos will wither! Will die! Show me the enemy. I am here to lead you. They hear their doom approaching.
Indrik Boreals.
We fight for our honor as Blood Ravens, as Space Marines, and we fight in the name of the Emperor!
While the enemies of the Emperor still draw breath, there can be no peace.
The Necron Lord.
So, they come.
And Vance Stubbs.
But to see my dreams fulfilled, first we must wipe the system clean of these blasted Xenos and heretics and monsters and zealots.
Fifth Company, this is the moment of truth. You will not fear. You will not falter.
But it does apply to all of them. But also, playing the Imperial Guard Stronghold made it very clear to me how little voice actors were available for this game. The Commissar, the Tech Priest, basically every character who should not sound like an average Imperial Guardsman is voiced by a regular average Imperial Guardsman. It's weird. Not even the opening cinematic is free of problems. The first games is basically perfect. Dark Crusades is basically perfect. The following game, Dawn of War 2's, is basically perfect. Soulstorm though goes with the interesting choice of Imperial Guard and Tau, which is fine, except here's Governor Lucas Alexander getting killed, even though he canonically died during the Dark Crusade, so already this entire event is either a retcon situation or a plot hole. And no, this battle does not take place in the Dark Crusade because this is not Shazo Kais. But then the Sisters of Battle show up. So, okay, look, the Sisters of Battle are one of the main combat forces of the Inquisition. They're tasked with hunting demons, purging the taint of chaos, and slaying the wicked. Why in the holy mother of fuck are they fighting the Tau Empire? An army that just does not have magic, demons, or any psychic powers. They don't know anything about what the Sisters of Battle are actually meant to fight. This is like the last army the Sisters of Battle would generally be sent to specifically fight. Legitimately, this could have been Dark Eldar to set up the new threat of the game, swooping in when these armies are weak, or Chaos instead of the Tau, who have yet to appear in an intro despite their iconicity, or even the Tau could in place with the Dark Eldar themselves, you know? They're fighting the Guardsmen, and the Sisters come in to stop the Dark Eldar. It's just a weird choice what they've gone with. So what did this game improve from Dark Crusade? The field of view is better, so you don't have to spend like 5 minutes getting used to it. You no longer have a restrictive limit to the length of the name you choose to save your data under. One thing I'm very mixed on, but I do think could have been a good concept, is how every race has its own unique ability, and you can get those abilities as other races when you take over their stronghold. However, they're not really balanced to me, and also means there's a lack of abilities to gain from capturing specific areas. Some of these are great. The Sisters of Battle get forward bases. The Dark Eldar get an unlimited webway gate that can travel anywhere in the solar system. The Necrons allow your honor guard to potentially bring themselves back to life if they die during a mission, so you don't have to repay for them. Eldar's Fleet March allows you to travel further on a map than normal, which is very good. And the Guardsman just reduces the cost of all stuff that requires planetary requisition, which is mostly useful because everything is already overpriced. But some are just not great. The Orc ability, which reminder any army can get, is using a wholesome living environment, which certainly makes sense if you're playing as the Dark fucking Eldar.
Terror and anguish sang sweetly in our ears.
To essentially, garrison populations automatically increase? What? Not all abilities are well communicated. Space Marines Deep Strike Squads allow you to deep strike units from your stronghold into enemy bases, which I don't think ever worked for me for some reason. It's just glitched, I guess. The Tau Fuck Off cannon apparently softens up whatever there is before you arrive, which is also very vague, and Chaos makes you ignore the supply line system, which never once came in handy for me because the system was a complete non-event in every playthrough I've ever had. And why is it like this? The Orcs should have an ability that boosts their population cap or something. Space Marines just shouldn't be fucked or should be better explained. Tau should allow your commander to fire the orbital cannon in battle for a high cost but high damage. Chaos should get Fury from the last game. It just feels weird. And then there are other abilities that just aren't available for some reason, like the aforementioned Fury, which would have done wonders to make this game less monotonous. Because sometimes if you're trying to travel to another planet to take out a stronghold, you gotta just spend ages getting there, while in Dark Crusade you just use the spaceport, be right next to it, end turn, and then attack them in 2 turns. It would have been much better if you could have Fury here. Hell, in Dark Crusade, if you had Fury and spaceport, it would take 1 turn to attack a stronghold. I'm not even going to bother with the whole big title card for each army thing, aside from our 2 new ones, because there isn't anything terribly new to talk about, because the new units they're something. Basically, every new unit, aside from the Necron one, is just meant to be a big flying thing. I mean, the Necron one also flies, but they already have the Nightbringer, which does the same thing, but basically they're all aerial units. The Imperial Guard get the Marauder Bomber, which I never really used outside of getting footage, because while it has a lot of bombing options, the Guard already have insane vehicles, and this does not add anything into my eyes. I think this should have been an infantry unit that would have made the Guards better. If the Imperial Guard win, they take over Karova 4 and Karova 2, and the Warp Storm vanishes. The system becomes a proud hub for the Imperium, the second greatest producer of Imperial Guardsmen, and Stubbs, the ruler of a star system, which, that's a fine ending. I do have to question the fact that Karova 4 was just allowed to be accepted when it's literally a Chaos planet. Feels like the kind of world where the taint has now run too deep in the eyes of the Inquisition to me. At least, it's a serviceable ending. The Necrons get the Deceiver, and mind you, I did not even know these Necrons were followers of the Deceiver and not the Nightbringer for the longest time, because they talk about themselves as an army of death, and they barely mention the Deceiver. The Deceiver does very little damage, but is meant to have insane abilities to make up for it. Instead, he has one pretty cool ability that makes enemies around him attack each other and not you, and one lame ability that just makes a big illusion, which, it's what the Ethereal does but worse. Honestly, outside of when I'm being swarmed by huge armies, I never use the Deceiver over the Nightbringer, but if they win, they kill everything. That's it. Even Dark Crusade was nice enough to give us an idea of the future of the planet. You don't get that in this. Chaos get the Hell Talon, which I think is actually good, because they desperately need vehicles, as they've only got one unique to them prior to this game. But the Hell Talon isn't special. At least Chaos didn't have a fast-moving vehicle prior, like basically every other army had, and I choose to take the biochemical thing as a little bit of Nurgle added to the army, which is great. Now we have 3 of the 4 Chaos Gods represented in this Chaos Undivided Legion. The Chaos ending, reveals that one random human with latent abilities was corrupted by Chaos and did rituals to summon the Warp Storm. Then Chaos killed everyone. Blood Ravens get the Landspeeder Tempest. It is fucking useless. Okay, no. It's not awful. It just doesn't offer anything to me that the Landspeeder didn't already get across. Like, that already goes across cover well enough and is fast enough. It just feels like the Tempest is a waste of vehicle cap. I think what the Blood Ravens should have gotten, especially if they were going to get an aerial unit, is a Thunderhawk gunship. Something really big. So it's like a massive aerial unit that costs a lot, but is very beefy and powerful and is a flying transport, which would be unique to them. Their ending has them take out guardsmen and the Sisters of Battle, but this time they turn on the other members of the Imperium of Man. They do not get questioned. Instead, they get rewarded for it. What? So the reason they were under suspicion is because they killed guardsmen. Because they're on the same side. But in this one, because they kill guardsmen and even an army of the Inquisition, they're not. Okay. The Tower get the Barracuda, which does a hell of a lot of damage, but much like the guardsmen, it feels like they don't really need it, because their non-car vehicles are already insane. I feel like they should have gone a new Kroot unit or a Mon-Car Relic unit. Probably a new Kroot idea though. Their ending is just colonizing the planets, that's all. The Eldar get the Nightwing, and in terms of how useless it is, I completely forgot to actually write up what the Nightwing did in my script, so I'm just winging it. Basically, the Nightwing does a lot of damage, but considering every Eldar vehicle aside from the Wraithlord can already fly across terrain with an ability, you don't really need the Nightwing, because you can just get a Falcon Grav Tank or a Fire Prism just anywhere you want, and it'll already do the same effect. The Nightwing's just not very good. The Eldar ending feels like it at least had a deal of thought put into it though. They kill everyone, then leave, and the guardsmen that survived the initial purging call new forces from the Imperium. They colonize the system once again, however, the Eldar make sure they never colonize Karova 3. And Brom, for some reason, returning from the first game, just went, oh well, I guess I won't then. And that's it. Oh, and then there's the Orc ending, which is the canonical one. Yes, the Orcs canonically won this game, which is kind of awesome. The Orcs kill everything. Also, they get the Fighter Bomber, which is fine. but their whole thing is it shoots a massive rocket, but most of their vehicles already fire massive rockets at people, so they didn't really need this. Like, overall, these flying vehicles are not too great to me, beyond maybe the Hell talent to give Chaos more vehicles. And the biggest issue with these endings is that we don't have any intro cutscenes. We have no idea what the real goal behind most armies are here, and given they don't tell us anything, Eldar, Necrons, and Guards get a pass, but the others don't. Chaos just tells us they want to fight the Imperium, which, compared to Dark Crusade establishing that Cronus is in a very good position in the galaxy for Chaos, and makes it a good place to foster demon troops, it's not really a good comparison. Dark Crusade did a lot more to establish why they're here. And even armies that don't have a problem with not explaining a lot, their endings still have issues. Like the Necron ending in Dark Crusade says what will happen in the future, the Eldar ending in Dark Crusade left on a mysterious note befitting them, the Guardsman ending somehow felt more grandiose despite being only one planet, while in Soulstorm they don't have any of these traits, they're just kind of flat. And just in general, I don't feel satisfied beating the game with any army in this. You don't know what your goal is for most of these armies from the start, and the ones you do, you don't get to see the results of completing that goal beyond they killed everyone in the system, which you don't need to be told that they killed everyone in the system, you just played them doing that. But there are 2 new armies, so...
The Dark Eldar!
The Dark Eldar are most iconic for being a bunch of Eldar who are evil, covered in spikes and really trying to just be the Cenobites from Hellraiser, wielding the mighty power of BDSM, the color purple, and homicidal hate fucking. They like to fuck, torture, kill, fuck, and be overall hedonistic. The main thing is being sneaky, underhanded, they avoid open combat if they can, and they would rather take out their foes strategically when they're weak, with sudden rushes at the worst moment. If Dark Eldar are doing their thing right, you will not even know that they're there until you're fighting tooth and nail for your life. So what the fuck are the Dark Eldar doing here? I seriously don't understand. They say they're here to feast us on the souls of the fallen like carrion birds, but they go out on an active campaign to assault all the forces. At least in Dark Crusade, when the Eldar did this, it was noted to be a necessary tactic that the Eldar were not happy with. The Dark Eldar are just showing up out of nowhere unprompted to attack. It's not like the Stronghold particularly helps. This cutscene just establishes how stupid the Archon Tarul, or whatever his name is. He goes on about how stupid the other armies are, like,
They just smash a wall or charge an army if they saw it.
As if he doesn't do the exact same thing in all of his attacks in the game. But he's also like,
Nah, don't be so worried, mate. If an army was approaching, we'd see it.
which, you know, I'd get if this wasn't one of the strongholds where a massive army approaches, and he does not fucking notice, and he gets ratioed. Oh, and to show you just how little thought went into the Dark Eldar in this game, when you destroy their stronghold, you kill Asdrubal Vect. I might not be pronouncing his name right, but he is the supreme overlord of all of Dark Comera. Comera is the Dark Eldar city-state, the primary home of the entire race and army in the Webway. Asdrubal Vect is the supreme leader of the entire Dark Eldar race. He is so old that he is believed to predate the fall of the Eldar itself. He shaped Comera, literally shaping a city in the warp. His cunning is said to rival the Chaos God Zench. He is a master tactician who knows the weakness of every single sentient race in the galaxy and beyond, and he is one of the most powerful living things at all that exists within the material world of the 41st millennium. His psychic powers, his physical prowess, and most importantly his brilliant, devious mind puts him above 95% of any other living thing that exists in the entire 40k franchise. Oh wait, no, he just got blown up by a few guns while riding a chariot. Bullshit. And this is to say, this is lore-wise. Gameplay-wise, obviously he can't be that powerful. In gameplay, Mortarian's in the fucking tabletop game, and he can just wipe out any planet he's on if he really wanted to in lore. But that's stupid, because that's not good for gameplay. But this is a cutscene! And it's not just that, oh, you kill him in the gameplay, so he has to be dead in the cutscene. Because not only is he alive at the start of the cutscene, meaning no, because you killed him before the cutscene happens, but Gorguts in Dark Crusade dies in his stronghold, but he actually runs off and survives in the ending cutscene. Anyway, the Dark Eldar army is an interesting one, though not necessarily in a good way. The Dark Eldar have 2 gimmicks. The first is that their buildings are self-building. So instead of needing to keep your builders preoccupied with building a current structure, they put a seed down, the building builds itself of its own accord, and your builder can go do something else. This is great. It aids the fast-paced feeling of the Eldar race in general, and gives the Dark Eldar something that actually kind of stands out from the Eldar. See, the Eldar are slow to get going, Not just because they build their buildings at normal rate, but they have to research the aspect stones of aspect warriors, adding in extra steps that other armies don't have. But when they get going, they're really fast. The Dark Eldar not only can build super fast, but they also don't need to do that research. However, their other gimmick is the soul system. You absorb the souls of your opponents, or if you're not a bumbling idiot, just absorb the infinite souls that spawn from the slave chambers when you put them in the minimum effort to fucking produce souls. And with that, you have access to many abilities. They are honestly not that special. The Soulstorm itself, which for some reason this expansion is named after, is an okay, controllable maelstrom of damage. You move it around. The ability to see infiltrated units is definitely welcome, though it requires souls, so you risk getting fucked if you're fighting the Tower or even the Chaos Space Marines, who have really good infiltration options. And the rest are just general damage or morale alteration, or things that I forgot they had for a long time. Beyond that, their units are just sort of okay. Some are really good and powerful, like most of their vehicles, which includes the relic unit, the Dace of Destruction, which is quite frail, but does serious damage and has a big swathing blade attack. The infantry is weird though. I only ever felt like the Scourges were seriously effective, but the others just sort of also being there, and Warp Beasts even attacking your own units if their morale breaks. Given the amount of morale breaking abilities in this game, that's not a good thing. Only your Beastmaster can wrangle them back up, and if he dies, you're screwed. The commander is cool though. He sort of has the Imperial Guard commander thing where he has a company with him, but instead of the Imperial Guardsman's variety, he comes with sheer numbers, as you can make a squadron of up to 6 units, those who aren't him being incubi, which are pretty strong. But otherwise, the Dark Eldar are not an interesting army to play, though their music is kinda neat. Should the Dark Eldar somehow fucking win, they kill everything. Yeah, no, that's it, they kill everything and torture anyone they don't kill. Then they just go away. Okay. The Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle are Space Marines with tits. They are part of the Inquisition, which have been mentioned a few times so far in the retrospective. The Adeptus Sororitas role is to be the Space Marines of the Inquisition, at least the ones they use when they don't actually want to win by sending the Grey Knights in instead. All cutscenes we get for them amount to summoning a saint and gaining invincibility in a shrine, and then when they lose, the saint gets really drunk off 15 bowls of Smirnoff and collapses. Then the sisters burn everything so brutally their opponents do not realize they have died and become immune to fire. I mean, at least the Stronghold ending is good in concept for a strong. The Sisters of Battle is in a sort of middle ground between the Space Marines and the Imperial Guard. They're pretty easy to pick up as a result of that, having strong units with large squad numbers, though not as strong as the Marines or as large as the Guard, with heavy weapons options closer to the Chaos Space Marines and the regular Marines. They even have their equivalent to those armies' individual units. They have their own Assault Marines, their own Hellhounds, their own version of the Bastards, which is also a fucking pipe organ mortar launcher battle tank. I love this! And they have a sort of Dreadnought too. Their main gimmick is the Faith system, where you can gather faith from certain buildings to perform certain abilities. It's fine, but it feels very gimmicky. It's not the worst, but it is notable that for the first few years I was playing this game, I didn't even realize they had the Faith system because it's so irrelevant. Unlike, say, the Tower Necrons in Dark Crusade, where their gimmicks are integral to how they play. These abilities can sometimes be extremely good though, like the little Divine Spirits our leader boss bitch can summon, or the big Holy Flame lasers weird male boy makes your girl shoot. They also have a relic unit obviously, the Living Saint, who is a big fucking melee unit that flies and has the ability to come back to life once after dying, which is pretty neat unless you're fighting against her. The Sisters of Battle are not awful, they're very fun to play and have a cool visual design and some good voices. Also, their theme is amazing, with all the chanting and feeling of power it comes with. Should the Emperor bless their blade, the Sisters destroy the force of the Kyber system, cleansing the Titan of Chaos in holy fire, and millions of Sisters of Battle flock to this one system. That's it. I think looking back, the things with these two armies and their main gimmicks that gets to me is how little impact they end up having, at least in my experience. Not counting the Space Marines and Chaos who don't have any crazy gimmicks as they're the original two base armies, and the Eldar who don't have a specific gimmick but rather properties that work into their playstyles, the other armies from pre-Soulstorm's gimmicks are all integral to how you play them. The Necrons don't have requisitions but time bonuses instead, which is integral to how they work and how you manage your resources. The Tau units are almost always basically exclusively melee or exclusively ranged, with very few in-betweens, which is integral to how you manage your troops. The Imperial Guard have weak as piss infantry but stupidly overpowered vehicles, which is integral to how you balance your army out. The Orcs need War Banners, and all their troops require Orc Pop, which is integral to how you build your base, and how you manage your individual units among troops, and whether you want more regular Orcs or more Big Boss Orcs. With the Sisters and Dark Eldar, you can ignore the Souls and Faith and not much would change. They're not integral to their playstyle. Giving the Dark Eldar more ways to see infiltrated units, I suppose, is good, but that shouldn't be a gimmick. It's a wonder they didn't decide that Faith should be a third resource for the Sisters. Why isn't Faith like just a third resource, and there are some units that the Sisters have that can only be paid for using Faith to bring them out? But those units are more powerful to balance it. So you have 3 resources to balance there. It's a wonder that the Dark Eldar units don't scale in strength depending on the amount of souls you get. Let's say your Dark Eldar start off relatively weak, but the more enemies you kill, the more powerful they get. You progress from stealth and speed tactics to brute force as the battle progresses. And also your slave chambers can't just produce infinite souls. Maybe these wouldn't be the most balanced to play, but at least the armies would feel more distinct in how they play. Not to say they're bad, I did play my one full playthrough of the game for this video using the Sisters of Battle after all. Though how much of that was me wanting to use them, and how much of that was just not wanting to put up with their stronghold is up for debate. But they don't have much really special to them, and both came in to take the army slot that should have gone to the Tyranids, I swear to fucking god. And with that, I think we've gone over Dawn of War Soulstorm. Is it a bad game? Despite all I said, no. It's not a bad game. The base mechanics are still good. It's still Dawn of War at its core. It is fun in short bursts. However, I think what it adds is not really all that interesting, and a lot of its alterations from Dark Crusade's campaign serve to make it feel far more padded out and very easy to get boring, which is a real disappointment. It's especially disappointing that the biggest reason I think there is to come back to Soulstorm over the others is not because of Soulstorm itself, but because of the modding community. I actually plan to play a bit and show some footage of the Ultimate Apocalypse mod, as that's the big one for Soulstorm, but a shitty laptop. But the mods for Soulstorm are great, but they do not have any bearing on my opinion, or the review for this game. I still think Soulstorm is heavily flawed, and while it is fun in bursts, it is the worst version of the original game on its own. If you were to play it, I would recommend only doing it if you use mods. And that's not a sign of a good game, is it? Thankfully now, we can move on from this playstyle in the future, as Dawn of War 2 is next and it's super different in how it plays. Not to say I wouldn't want a Dawn of War game in the future that goes back to this style, just all 4 of these retrospectives so far have essentially been the same game, but anyway, Dawn of War 2 is next, so I'll see you then, and I am very excited.